Well, good evening. My name's Phil Bluestein, and it is a wonderful opportunity for us to get together tonight to listen to Dr. Leslie Ellestad talk about mindfulness and beauty. So this evening is presented by a group called Wellness Through Mindfulness. We created this in 2015, and it was a vehicle to offer teachings on mindfulness and related topics. And the offering is given freely. None of the speakers are paid for this, and none of the organizers are paid for this. We have a website called www.thebreathproject.org. And on this website are animated videos, interviews with very experienced meditators in mindfulness. And one can also access the WTM website, wtm.thebreathproject.org. And on that, we put the recordings of our presentations. There are guided meditations, and it's a great resource for mindful musings and other resource articles. We originally met at the Shaganappi Community Hall, but with the advent of COVID, this had to stop. And we were very lucky to partner with the Calgary Public Library, and in particular, Patrick Mealy, who reached out and allowed us to have this great opportunity. So we present the first and third Thursday of the month, 7 to 8:30. It's a Zoom meeting at this point in time, and obviously everyone is welcome. So the structure of the evening is that Leslie will give her presentation for about 50 minutes. Between 8 and 8:30, we will be open for questions that you can enter through the chat at any time during the presentation. And I would suggest that you take the advantage of this opportunity to ask Leslie any question related to mindfulness and meditation, and not just limited to mindfulness and beauty. So, just to let you know what's coming up, on March 17th, we have Mindfulness for the Overthinker by Nicole Libben. I guess this really applies to all of us because we all overthink. And so this is a great opportunity to learn some strategies, how to deal with that overthinking mind that never gives you any peace. And on April 7th, Who Has Time for Mindfulness? Christine Francoeur will talk about how to find and carve out opportunities to practice mindfulness throughout the day. And it's not just a formal sitting practice. So this evening, Dr. Leslie Ellestad is going to be talking about mindful connection to the beautiful. And I'll just share with you what she's talked about. The path of mindfulness supports a gradual reduction in our suffering and eventually frees us from suffering. One of the experiences along this path is a state of well-being that supports a connection with the beautiful, the opportunity to be present with whatever is in our experience that is beautiful. Dr. Ellestad was a family physician in Calgary for many years and has recently retired. And this has given her a great opportunity to deepen her practice. Leslie has a very deep mindfulness and meditation practice and has studied various traditions. And she also teaches at yoga. Let me just get that right. Yoga MCC, where she teaches mindfulness and leads retreats. And so it is, I'm sure, going to be a wonderful presentation because Leslie is a wonderful presenter who is able to share in a very sort of experiential way what mindfulness and meditation is about. And so with that, I will pass the evening over to Leslie. Thank you, Leslie.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening. And we're going to start with a meditation that is based on this connection to the beautiful. So I would invite you to dive in, find your seat wherever you are. You can also stand or lie down, whichever posture feels like it's most helpful for your practice at this time. And just come into your body, feel the feet underneath you and where they're contacting the earth, the ground. And then wherever you're seated or lying down, feel the contact between your buttocks, your seat. Move into the experience of your body meeting the surface that's underneath it. And then it's helpful, if you're sitting in a chair, to move your back a little bit forward, your buttocks a little bit forward, so you're not leaning back into the chair. Your back could be touching, but you're not leaning into the back of the chair. And this invites an uprightness to the spine. And the emotional quality can be one of dignity, sense of confidence, allowing the energy to spring up from the bottom, your tailbone, and support your sense of well-being, of wakefulness. The chin slightly tucked. Just find the spot where it helps to create a sense of openness in the neck. And then it's helpful to check in with the front of the body as well. First of all, the face, inviting the facial muscles to feel at ease. And then the shoulders, some openness in the shoulders. And then the shoulder blades can support this openness when we invite that sense of uprightness, of confidence. And now the arms hanging from the shoulders in a relaxed way, with our hands on our thighs or in our lap. Invite settling with the contact between the hands and the thigh or the lap. And then returning to the whole body. Feeling the body as a whole. And then noticing that the body is breathing. Resting attention on the breathing. aware of breathing. We are breathing, and we know we're breathing. Mindful of breathing. And then as we continue to pay attention to the breath, can we add the quality of interest or curiosity, becoming curious about the details of our breathing? Maybe choosing a particular area of the body to monitor the breath, to be with the breath. It could be in your belly, could be the chest, or at the nostrils. Just choosing one of those three. And then adding curiosity. I'm curious, how is this breathing now? And as we notice with curiosity, we also may become aware of a sense of there being energy, energy in the body, energy in the mind. Become curious about this energy. And then pop the question, is there any happiness, well-being here in the mind? Joy? Do you feel it or see it or know it? And sometimes if we allow a small smile, a Buddha smile, happiness will arise. Rest the mind in happiness. Get distracted. You may wish to reinvigorate your mindfulness through paying some attention to breath, maybe 25 or 50% of your attention on the breath, as you also notice happiness. And with all of these factors, mindfulness, curiosity, energy, and happiness, it encourages and supports our mind to settle. And we may notice that there is some calm, some tranquility, some ease. And it's okay to invite calm. May I be calm. And as best as you can, rest in the calm, in the peace. And with the mind calming down, we may notice this well-being, this sense of collectedness of the mind, less distracted. More unified. This is the experience of what's called samadhi, collected, unified, concentrated mind. And with this unity of the mind, are we able to connect with the sense of being okay? Okay with how things are. At ease in the middle of things. And then as the meditation comes to an end, taking your time to open your eyes, maybe move a little bit, get any kinks out, look around your room. So the topic this evening is mindful connection to the beautiful. And we are often focusing or become much more aware of suffering. The Buddhist path, which I'm trained in, talks about the Four Noble Truths, where we recognize that the truth of suffering, that human existence is naturally, there is struggle within the experience of being human, a lack of ease at times. And a lot of what we do in our mindfulness practice is to learn how to be with suffering and how to let suffering go. Equally important to becoming skilled with suffering is to become more conscious, more aware of the beautiful. And there's a number of reasons and ways to reasons for becoming aware of beauty. And there's a number of ways of increasing our sensitivity and capacity to open to beauty. And the way we're going to focus on today when I'm talking is based on a teaching called the 7 Factors of Awakening. And these are skills that we can learn, but they're also naturally occurring capacities that we have as human beings. And we went through them in the meditation practice, and we'll be covering them in more detail in the talk. But first of all, why is it important to open to beauty? And why is it difficult to open to beauty? It's important to open to beauty because it's part of the truth of our existence, that there is beauty, there is joy in our experience. So it's reality that there is this capacity to sense beauty and to be with it, and that there is beauty. As well, as we develop more capacity to be with beauty, we are also improving the chances that we'll be able to gradually liberate ourselves from the struggles and the difficulties that we have. Because beauty in and of itself is nourishing. It's nourishing to the mind and it's nourishing to the body. So that's an introduction to this topic of beauty. The other aspect of it is that beauty is a quality that helps us to open our heart. And when our heart is open, we are more able to be with ourselves in a kind way and be with others in a kind way. And when we're kind, then we tend to increase our happiness. We feel happy when we're kind, and we stimulate happiness for others when we're kind. And beauty is one of the things that helps us to access this opening of our heart. There's a story of some Tibetan lamas who were highly trained in meditation and were running away, escaping their country because of the invasion by the Chinese of Tibet. And they, of course, were frightened, as anyone would be, and it was stressful. But they did remark when they ended their journey that they also found during their travels that they were able to open to the beauty of the opportunity to visit the hermitages of their lineage masters. So on their way out of Tibet, they were up in the mountains and would occasionally run into a hermitage that had been used by one of their masters. And this was nourishing for them, and they were able to pause and take in the beauty of these locations where people they admired and had learned from had practiced in the past. So this is a demonstration of how beauty can nurture us even in times of stress. And in preparation for this talk, I was listening to another teacher speak, and they used this poem, a contemporary poem by Alison Luterman, which I'm going to share with you, which speaks to this experience. It's called Confessing to Happiness. I'm scared. I'm scared to confess to happiness. I know the jealous fates in the dolorous heaven, how they love to feast on the heart. I know they've already marked the spot where one of us dies and the other stands open-mouthed and uncomprehending as dirt closes over our one song. But for just this moment, I want what I have. I want what I have. So this experience of wanting what we have is the experience of what I would call contentment. When we want what we have, we are content. And when we are content, we want what we have. Whereas at other times, when we're not content, we want what we don't have, and we don't want what we do have. And this is the common human condition of pushing and pulling our experience. So opening to beauty is a doorway of wanting what we have, because when we sense beauty, then in that moment, we are content. Our heart is open. Why is it difficult to open to beauty? Why don't we have more times in the day where we sense beauty? What we discover as we do a mindfulness practice is that we have built up walls in the heart and in the mind and in the body that are there to protect us from perhaps experiences we've had in the past where we weren't content, where our needs were not being met, and we put up a barrier, perhaps of fear, of anger, of wanting, of not, when we don't get what we want, it tends to create a sense of need or greed. And all of these experiences build up walls in the mind and the body that are contracted and tight and uncomfortable. And while they were originally there to protect us from emotions that might have been difficult or physical sensations that might have been difficult, they eventually entrap us and make our mind and our body less well and less able to open and see the beauty that's already there. So as we attempt to relax and open, these contractions will become alarmed. What do you mean? You want to be seen now? You've been hiding away, or you've been letting me hide all this time, and now you're saying it's okay to be seen, and I'm not quite ready. I'm not sure if it's safe. These are guardians, protectors that I need, that you need. And so opening to beauty can feel difficult. There are a number of ways that we can experience beauty in the meditation path. And we're going to focus on, as I said, the 7 factors of awakening, but you can also open to beauty through our behavior. We can open to beauty through our behavior and also through observing the behavior of other people we admire. And this is called the bliss of blamelessness. When we act in such a way that our intention is non-harming and to benefit others, and in fact that our actions are skillful, and that's the result we get, we feel a sense of the beauty of our own behavior and of the beauty of others' behavior. And you might want to recall times where you felt you've done the right thing, how you felt that sense of contentment and ease and happiness because you acted in line with your values, and others and yourself benefited. So ethics is one way to connect with beauty. Another way is through wisdom, which is basically the Four Noble Truths, seeing the cause of suffering and understanding that there is a path to end suffering, and seeing the results of that over time, that we gradually free ourselves from our clinging, and through that we gradually feel more at ease and we have more wisdom as to how to behave, and the results are better. So wisdom, learning about wisdom through our practice, can be a source of beauty in our life. And this third way is through the practice of formal meditation. And there are three efforts we make in meditation. One is called right effort, which is keeping the mind in balance. Another is mindfulness, which most of us are aware of, the simple capacity to be aware of our experience. And the third is samadhi, or concentration, the gradual increasing ability to gather the mind and unify it, collect it. So let's return to the seven beautiful qualities of the mind. The first one is mindfulness, then investigation, then energy, and then joy, or it can be called happiness, and tranquility or calm, and then concentration, or samadhi is the Pali word for that. And the final one is equanimity. And as I mentioned, all of these are natural qualities that all of us have access to. We've all experienced moments of curiosity, feeling the energy of our life, moments of happiness, of peace, of feeling very focused and gathered, and feeling okay with things as they are. These are natural qualities. And for some of us, one of them may be quite a bit more developed than others, or a few of them may be more developed, and some of them we need more to cultivate. But initially in meditation, they may be quite tender shoots, kind of like a flower springing up from the ground. And some of us, it may be like they're in Hawaii, where there's already a very natural environment that helps things to grow. Or maybe we're more like the desert, and there's a lot of need for nourishment for those flowers to be able to sprout and grow. But whatever ground these flowers are planted in, we do have the capacity to recognize them and to nourish them. So there's basically two skills that we want to talk about tonight. One is recognizing these seven factors, and the second is how to nourish or nurture them. So let's go over each of them in a little bit more detail. So mindfulness, as I was pointing out during the meditation, is the activity that knows experience as it arises and it passes away. That's one way to look at mindfulness, just being aware of an experience. So it's often, the bell is often used in teaching meditation. So I'm going to ring the bell and just notice the awareness factor, that you are aware of the bell, both as it is struck and then as it fades away. And now the second time I ring it, bring the quality of curiosity or interest. Become a little closer to the experience of the bell. Intensify your focus on the bell to notice more details about it. So this interest or curiosity is when we look at, we may have noticed the sound of the bell has different overtones. We may have been more aware of when it started and when it ended, or how long it seemed to last, whether we liked it or didn't like it, whether we found it pleasant or unpleasant. All of these details can be seen when we look a little more closely with a little more purpose. And then the third quality, as I've already mentioned, is energy. With the experience of looking with curiosity, we are both utilizing and cultivating energy. So you may have started to feel that with your meditation practice, that there is energy in our mind-body experience. Another aspect of experience, besides body sensations, besides emotions and thoughts and images, is this experience of energy. And applying our mindfulness in a continuous way with curiosity does increase our tendency to have energy. And when we feel energetic, we often also have some happiness or joy. And then when we have this experience of happiness, we often notice that there is some ease. Along with happiness, we feel safe. We feel like things are good. So then ease develops, calm. And that's the next factor. And when we have gathered around a happy experience and we're curious about it, interested in it, then our mind collects. We have this unity. Think of things that you've enjoyed in your life. If you have a hobby or an interest that you treasure, maybe that's your Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon thing that you like to do when you have some spare time, and how your mind can maybe quite easily collect around it. Or it might be something you really enjoy in your work that is a passion you're passionate about. And when your mind collects around it, it's a pleasure and you feel well. So this well-being is a result of this collected nature, collected capacity of mind. And then when our mind is collected, the next thing we experience is this sense of being okay. Equanimity is the word that is used in this tradition. So to explain in particular the samadhi a little bit more, I'd like to share with you a metaphor that I have heard lately about samadhi that was really meaningful to me and helpful. So this metaphor is of a speaker and an audience, or it could be a musician or a dancer, something where there is a connection between a person on a stage at the front of the room and the people who have gathered to share in this experience. And when the audience is quiet and focused on the performer or the speaker, then we have this expression, you could hear a pin drop. We have all experienced that when there's been a wonderful speaker or performer in front of us and our attention as a group gathers around it. We're very curious and we're enjoying the beauty of the experience. And every single person in the room is enraptured by the experience, very focused on it. And this would be a high level of samadhi. There's a lot of collectedness of mind. Well, sometimes there's one or two people who are feeling restless and they're not that interested. They came because their partner wanted them to come, but they're actually not that interested in it. Or they're restless because there's something bothering them. Their back hurts or something like that. And so there's a few people in the room who aren't paying attention, and that may have an effect on the overall collectedness of mind, but there is still collectedness. There still is samadhi, even though there's some restlessness. And then there might be a few other people who are very tired. They've worked long hours and they haven't had enough sleep. They're stressed by what they're doing and they sit down in a chair, and even though they do have an interest in what's going on the front of the stage, they're falling asleep. So there's this sloth, there's this torpor, and they're not collected around the experience as the other people in the room are. And then there may be people who are irritated, people who didn't get the parking spot they wanted, they arrived late and they rushed to their seat and they're still remembering that person who took their spot in the parking lot. So this person has some level of aversion or irritation in the mind. But there's many people still who are collected around the experience. And the other person might be the person who is really, really excited about being here, and they're already thinking ahead about after the concert's over or the speaker is finished, how they're going to talk about it with their friend, or that they're going to be the one to go backstage first and have a chance to talk to the performer, the speaker. So this might be what we call the experience of greed. They're not actually in the present enjoying the experience, they're thinking about it and elaborating, fantasizing about it. So this is another way that the collectedness of mind can be disturbed. And then there could be the person who's thinking, I don't know if this is really worth it. I have so much work to do. I doubt I'm not sure about this, my decision to be here. And so they're not present either. They're somewhere else thinking about something else. They're doubting that this is the right thing to do. But there's still the majority of the audience. Maybe now we're down to 70% of the audience is focused on the experience, connected with the performer or the speaker, and there still is samadhi despite these hindrances in the audience, these distracted qualities that are present. So this is a metaphor for what happens in our mind. We often are aiming for a very collected mind that we once had on a long retreat and it was a beautiful experience, or we once had on a vacation. We recall an hour or two of gazing at a beautiful sight, and our mind felt very much at peace and at ease. And we had a sense of something greater than ourselves. And we think that's what we're aiming for. If we don't get that, there is no collectedness of mind, there's no peace or ease. But what this metaphor is telling us is that much of the time we will have distractors, contractions, and the various hindrances in the mind present, but what we need to also remember that there is some collectedness there is some samadhi. So how do we go about cultivating this collectedness? So one of the ways might be for the person on the stage to shout and demand our attention. You must pay attention to me. If you don't, you're not a good participant here, and we want you to leave. We don't like people like you, and you're really a failure. Why did you even come? That would be our inner critic who is chastising us or pushing us hard to perform our task. That way is effective at times. It can be helpful to have a taskmaster within us, but it's also quite brittle. The more effective method is to invite these factors, these 7 factors, to make the space of our mind and our body safe, and to invite the qualities that we've mentioned of interest and joy to appear when they are there, to support them and rest in them. And this helps us to develop a much steadier and more reliable kind of samadhi. So the first metaphor was the striving in practice, and we all can tip over into this, depending on our nature. And the second is a more relaxed and settled kind of effort. And I'd also like to point out that even in simple experiences, and we'll do one right now, I'd like you to bring your attention into your body. And now collect your attention on one of your feet. Move into the foot and feel it as best as you can. You may even want to close your eyes. Have a sense of collecting around your foot. So this kind of collection around the foot is also samadhi. It's a localized samadhi. And then to talk a little bit more about equanimity. Equanimity is the quality of being at ease in the middle of things, including being at ease with not being at ease. So the next time you're feeling restless, I would invite you to see if there is something, a small part of you that is not restless, that is at ease, even though most of you is not easeful. And this is equanimity. We can get to a very stable, grounded equanimity. I think has three things to point out. It feels grounded and steady, and it feels open and spacious, and it's responsive. It's ready to respond. And I've heard it be compared to the moon shining in the sky, a whole moon. Whereas perhaps loving kindness, which we've talked about in previous evenings, is more like the sun. Equanimity is stable. There is a light there. There is some energy and warmth, but it's also kind of contained and able to stay in its place, even if circumstances aren't as warm and bright. So an example of this, other than restlessness, would be when we notice what often comes up in meditation practice is aversion. We start to notice all the ways our mind tries to push away our experience, from frustration to anger, even rage or jealousy. All of these experiences, which we may try not to notice because we find them unpleasant. We don't want to have them. It's unpleasant to admit to ourselves that we have them. It can be very helpful to have this sense of it's okay to have these experiences, and just say that's how the mind is. That's one of the ways our mind responds to life, is with aversion. And it's okay. That's what the mind does. Keep reminding ourselves it's not personal. It's not who we are. It's just an experience in the mind. Now, we do have to be careful about how it affects our words and our behavior, and whether we emphasize it or try to work with it and skillfully. We don't want it to take over and cause harm. But it's also not helpful to be aversive to aversion. So as we go along in our practice, it's important to start to notice these 7 factors and then taste them individually. I like to use the term bookmarking them when they show up. Oh, that's what joy feels like. Oh, that's what being calm feels like. I actually feel pretty good right now. My mind, there's not too much of any of those hindrances of the mind present. I'm mostly at ease and have some well-being. And really make a note of these experiences, both in daily life and on the meditation cushion. And then we can both recognize them and we can nourish them. We can cultivate them. We can rest in them and really taste them. Another part of the practice is to learn how to balance them. So some of us may be more on the side of the activating factors, the mindfulness, investigation, energy, and joy, and have less access to the calm the collectedness and the okayness. So we may start to notice which side is stronger in us, and know that we need to cultivate and work on the other side in order for us to develop the capacity over time to have the qualities of mind present, the well-being present, that supports us gradually releasing ourselves from the suffering that remains in our mind and body. And this is a very important point. Why is it important to have samadhi? Well, samadhi is a factor of mind that supports our gradual purification, is a word that's used, but the gradual release and letting go of suffering. And when we have this quality of samadhi, it leads to freedom. So again, allow the definitions of these factors to stay simple. There are many talks on the internet by many different teachers about the 7 factors of awakening. And if you're interested in this topic, I would encourage you to listen to other teachers, as well as you will have access to this recording later on. So allow yourself to develop an interest in them and be curious about when they arise. When they do arise, know that they love being seen. They are waiting for you to notice them. There is a natural part of us that wants to be happy, that wants freedom. And when we pay attention to it, it thrives. And then a caution: whenever we bring something new into our meditation practice, we may feel awkward for a while, much like if you take a golf or a tennis lesson and you get some great tips from your teacher, and you go practice them, say of a tennis player against the backboard, or with a machine that throws balls at you, or with a tennis partner, you practice them. They may feel awkward at the beginning, and you may not do as well at your next golf game or your next match. But continue to try to include them, and over time, they will enhance your practice. You have the opportunity to have a more helpful meditation practice, much as the tennis game or the golf game would improve as you incorporate your new skill into your game. So another aspect I wanted to bring up today is about how beauty is present in our daily life. And I wanted to bring up 3 different areas where beauty naturally arises. One is in art and music, and one is in nature, so in the natural world, and another is in human connection, in small ways, just in having a pleasant moment with a person in a store who's helpful and you're appreciative of them, or in giving help to another person, supporting another person. We feel that the beauty and the connection with another human being. And then in the arts, such as music or visual art, dance performance, or engaging in dance, we can sense the beauty. And you may recall that Rilke wrote a poem about the statue of Apollo's torso. There's no head or arms or legs, there's just the torso. And Rilke wrote a poem about this, describing how moving it was for him to behold this work of art, and how in beholding the beauty of this work of art, he was called on to completely change his life. So perhaps you've had that experience of astonishment, of awe, when you've beheld beauty. and each of us will have our own particular way we connect to beauty. So my question for myself is really, is it the work of art and the beauty in the art that calls on me to change, or is it the refreshment to my mind and my heart that I experience as I behold the beauty that supports the well-being in my mind, which helps me to transform my difficulties, my suffering, my clinging? It could be both. The other part of it is, what is it in the artist that they're connecting with that helps them to create works of art or beautiful music? My sense is it is this same access to beauty that they have, that we have. And somehow when we connect through the work of art or the music, we are all sharing in this place of beauty. I know that after I've been entranced or in rapture during a performance by an artist of any kind, I do have that feeling of wanting to linger in the experience, of not wanting to rush off after I've had that experience. And there is a tradition of going backstage and connecting with the artist and thanking them for their performance. And this is that human connection around beauty, a way of expressing it. I wanted to read a poem that is about this, experience the importance of beauty. This is by M.S. Irwin, and it's called Place. So it begins, on the last day of the world, I would want to plant a tree. What for? Not for the fruit. The tree that bears the fruit is not the one that was planted. I want the tree that stands in the earth for the first time, with the sun already going down and the water touching its roots, in the earth full of the dead and the clouds passing, one by one, over its leaves. So on the last day of the world, whether it's the last day of the world for everyone or the last day of our world on our death, would you be willing to plant a tree, knowing that you were never going to see it flower, you were never going to taste its fruit? Ask yourself that question. What would be the meaning of planting a tree that you would never benefit from? Do you feel, as I do, the power of the heart that comes alive with this sense of supporting life through that tree? Beauty has power. And this power of beauty is supportive of our heart. And when our heart opens, this helps support us in awakening. And we have to be careful here, because beauty, we can become attached to it. We can seek it, we can cling to it, or we can want to buy it, or bargain for it. But that is not the path of awakening. The path of awakening is to be with beauty and release it. So I'm just aware of time here. I've gone over time. I had some contemplations, but I'm just going to mention them that you could do them at home. And the contemplations would be to recall a natural environment for you is beautiful. Bring yourself into it and experience it in your mind and notice the experience of beauty. And one thing I do is to sometimes open up my phone and look at some beautiful scenery, some photographs or people that I love, and connect with the beauty of that. Another one would be to connect with the beauty of a work of art and really contemplate that experience that you have of beauty. So I'll leave it at that and open to questions.
Leslie, I have to say that was a beautiful presentation. Very clearly presented, some great ideas. So for everybody who's with us, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to ask Leslie questions as it relates to her talk tonight, or questions related to mindfulness and meditation. So please enter them into the chat, and no question is without value. So while we're just waiting for some people to enter their question, one of the big problems in appreciating beauty is that we just don't seem to be aware of it. That, they often say that we're present only 47% of the time. So could you offer some suggestions to people how they can simply develop the capacity to be attentive in order to appreciate beauty?
For myself, it's to have made the commitment for a period of time to look for it. So in setting intentions, it can be helpful to pick a particular intention. So say for today or for this week, I am going to look to see beauty, and then to find moments to pause. So when I was working, I used to intentionally look at the sky when I got out of my car before going into the office. So I would do that as a practice to, okay, how is the sky today? Unfortunately, in Calgary and Alberta, even in the winter, we often have these beautiful blue skies. And so I would set the intention to be, notice beauty. And with people, I would look for, you could say, I'm going to look for it in nature, or I'm going to intentionally sit down and really focus on this piece of music that I like. Don't try to struggle with the kind of music you don't like. And I'm going to open my senses to this quality of beauty. So to invite it is what I would recommend. And then also to be open to just noticing it when it naturally arises. So for me, it's often when I have more time to do yoga or meditation or go for walks or whatever is nourishing for me, that it just naturally arises. And then there's this aspect of just resting in it, like, oh, there it is. Now I'm going to actually rest my mind in this experience of the beautiful.
Thank you. So we have a question. Just what was the name of the poem that you read, Leslie?
Though I read two poems. One was
It should have been the first one, I think.
the Alison Luterman poem was Confessing to Happiness. I believe I can look at that again, but that's what I recall. You can find it on Google. That's where I found it.
Do you consider being okay with something the same as simply accepting it? Being okay with something seems to have some level of agreement with or approval of it to me, while accepting seems to have some level of surrender or resignation.
Okay.
So I think we're getting into the question of equanimity.
Yes.
And does this mean acceptance? Does it really mean approval of? Or is there something more to that?
That's a very good question. What equanimity is that I remain okay, even if I'm not in agreement or wanting my what's going on. So one of my teachers says, what's so important that it's worth disturbing the peace in your mind? It's a very good question. We let our mind get disturbed, but is there any benefit to letting our mind get disturbed? Ultimately, there is not a benefit, although we will go through much of that. So being okay is about being okay within ourselves. It doesn't mean we are not going to do something to change the circumstances. So it may be that we take vigorous action to change the circumstances. So say we're getting mugged. Can we remain okay inside but still hit the mugger over the head, or use our self-defense techniques, or our whistle to call for help, or run as fast as we can? Yes, we would not just be submitting to abuse from somebody. We would protect ourselves, but can we remain at peace or at ease internally as we do that? That's a dramatic example.
Yeah, I think that sort of speaks to the definition of mindfulness that I think can be confusing. We're sort of into the very traditional Jon Kabat-Zinn awareness of the present moment on purpose in a particular way, non-judgmentally and non-reactively. So it almost makes us think that we should be present but not react to it. Can you address that part that sort of you just talked a bit about, and that it sort of ties into the equanimity component? It's sort of like, well, we shouldn't react to what is present. And I think that's the confusing part.
Mm. Yeah, so if we look at it from the perspective that I presented this evening, mindfulness is the beginning factor. It's just being aware of our experience, and equanimity is something that arises over time as we have cultivated all of these factors of awakening, and the mind becomes freer, so we're less likely to be reactive. First of all, we'll probably notice through the practice of mindfulness how reactive we are. That's often the shocking thing. For one thing, most people notice they think all the time, and they can't even see the other factors because there's a Niagara Falls of thinking going on. And underneath of that, there is often some strong body sensations and emotions that are stimulating the thinking. So in the beginning phases, mindfulness just introduces us to how we're monkey mind, we're scattered. But as time goes on, we do notice that there is this capacity, no matter what is happening, for there to be a sense of ease and steadiness. Imperturbability is another word that's used for equanimity.
That's a great explanation. It seems that with this capacity to appreciate beauty, beauty is not inherent to anything. Beauty is something that we superimpose on all experience. Mm-hmm. So how do we get over the problem of our judging mind that evaluates everything, and we're never really with what is there without our superimposed negative interpretation? How do we see the beauty in things when we're always seeing what's negative about them and how it impacts us?
Well, this is part of our experience. That's why we're interested in mindfulness, that we do tend to have a lot of overlay over our experience, including aversion. But we also have the opposite, which is greed, which is, oh, I really want that. Oh, that was delicious. I'd like to have another one. That meal was so wonderful. When can I come back to this restaurant? That's another aspect of our experience that we cling and want. So your question was about how do we, you did mention about the beauty is something is an evaluation that we're putting on something, which
you could like chocolate ice cream. I could like vanilla ice cream. So you see what I mean? It's all.
Yeah, so that's liking and disliking. And I think there might be another way to look at it. It's not that yours isn't a full way to look at it. There's just another way, which is that the mind itself, and you've experienced this, I know you've been on retreats where you experience a very radiant mind, where when you walk out of sit on a meditation retreat, suddenly the colors of the flowers are more intense, and you just are awed by the color of the sky, and your heart feels full, and you think this is, everything is beautiful on that day. Even the garbage is beautiful. So what is that? That's the mind is filled with radiance, and the radiance is reflected in everything we look at. And then there's another aspect of beauty, which is that when I see another meditator who's in that state, they have this light and energy in them that is beautiful. So you probably have seen that. You look at someone and say, wow, they're really into it. And look at their face, it's shining, and their eyes are bright, and I see beauty. So what is that? Just pop that question. What's that? Or you look at it, I mean, this naturally happens. I just walked by probably a 16-year-old who was shoveling her parents' walk this afternoon. And I was like, wow, there's youthful, not in an aesthetic sense, but just that energy of youth is beautiful in and of itself, versus probably like a 50-year-old mother who's gotten home from work and I have to shovel the walk and looks tired and bedraggled. Well, this young woman looked beautiful because she had that energy in her.
Yeah.
And then there's another part, which is aesthetics, which is, I suppose, the understanding of artistic beauty. And each art form has, different standards and different practices that bring out beauty. And we each have our taste. There's a lot of taste involved in appreciating. We all have different kinds of music we like, different kinds of art. And so that's another way to look at beauty. But I don't think they're that separate, because for me, the artist, as I said in my talk, is coming from that place of beauty within themselves to create their art. And it's the fact that we have the capacity to connect with that place through their art that we so much enjoy the experience of their art.
You talked about this experience of being on retreat and coming out, and everything is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of that reflection of that capacity to concentrate the mind, and then the mind in some spontaneous way sees life through that concentrated lens.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that most of us aren't in a concentrative meditative state. And again, we go out into the world and we're always reacting to what we evaluate. Is there a way for us to create a way for our minds to see the beauty in what is present, rather than what it means about how incomplete I am? Can we be proactive so that we can see the beauty, the awe in experience, and not the negativity?
Can you tell me about experiences you've had where that happened for you? Do you recall, like, even your recent travels? I don't want to reveal your personal life, but was there a time on your recent travels that you felt some sense of the beauty and awe of your surroundings?
Uh, Absolutely. I mean, we all have things that are significant for us, and relationships are important. And, connecting with family can or cannot create spontaneous feelings of love. What I've tried to experiment with, which is sort of interesting, is to be able to um, proactively influence the way I see my experience. We all walk down the street and you see somebody, and immediately you have a judgment of them. They're too big, they're too small, they look not well dressed. You know what our minds do. And I've tried to experiment with being able to look at my experience. And if it's nature, it's a matter of trying to stop and see, what's the awe? If it's a person, it's the sense of saying, I wonder what their story is, which we all have stories, and that all connects us.
Mhm.
And so I'm just trying to develop a way that I can be in my world from a positive, proactive perspective.
Mhm.
Not Pollyannish that says, well, everything is good, but it's
Mhm.
really trying to see the beauty. So that's what I was trying to get at in the question
Mhm.
of you, was because beauty really depends on how we see it, right? And so how can we develop that capacity to
Yeah,
see
you've brought up really good points. I've heard that if you're in an argument with someone or finding something difficult, you should try to at least like their shoes. Um, find something that you can connect with, that you value and admire. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but I agree. There is a tendency, and it's somewhat embarrassing. I don't know if you've had that feeling. I'm embarrassed at how many judgments I make when I go for a walk. Can I intend, this time when I go for a walk, can I instead try to notice something pleasant about each person I walk by? Or
Yeah.
as you said, that this person has a lot that you don't know about them, and you will never know. They may not even know themselves, but it's all there within them, and they're complex human beings just like we are. Um,
Yeah.
so you can cultivate, as you say, you can cultivate that capacity.
And we have a last question here. Where are these retreats near Calgary for mindfulness and yoga? Beautiful presentation.
So there is um, an organization called Calgary IMS, which you can go to their website, and they have a newsletter you can request to be sent, and they advertise retreats that are available within the city. There's a Zen community called Calgary Soto Zen, and they are starting to meet again. They meet for half a day once a month on a regular basis. So that's a mini retreat. They also have regular sittings on Zoom. Um, And let me see if there's anything else to say there. There's a community in Canmore called the Canmore Theravada Buddhist Society, and they sometimes do have retreats. They've all been on Zoom for the last 2 years, but hopefully within the coming months, I'll just be vague about it because nobody knows. They'll start to have in person. I know that the teacher there has once things are open, she has a day long once a month. It's related to the cycle of the moon. So sometimes it's during the week and not on the weekend. Um, so there's that. And there are a few communities around the Calgary area. One in Alberta, the Goenka tradition, where you can go on retreats. Again, I don't know if they're holding retreats with COVID. And there is a monastery called Birken Forest Monastery in BC, where once COVID is over, they would be holding retreats again. I believe they've had some online retreats as well.
Yeah.
And then
And we
in
W.
BC, yes, WTM has a day long, usually once or twice a year. And I don't know when we'll do our next one, maybe in the fall. And you're welcome to attend that. And Yoga MCC, as I mentioned, has some events like this, so you could look on their website.
Great. Leslie, this has been a wonderful presentation. I wondered if you could just give some final closing thoughts, something that people can go home with and be able to practice.
I think it would be to know that if you begin to meditate, you're going to notice the struggles, but it's also important to notice the happiness, the joys, the beauty of meditation, and the same in our daily lives, that we can support our gradual movement towards freedom and ultimate happiness through cultivating our awareness of beauty. And it's been beautiful to be here with you, and I've enjoyed my preparations for this talk as well. And I look forward to sharing with you either as a moderator or an audience member or as the speaker in the future.
Thanks so much, Leslie. Another great presentation. And I know that there was a lot of valuable information that came out. we're having a lot of comments about thank you very much, thank you so much. So it looks like your talk was very well received. So in closing, again, gratitude to Leslie for a great presentation as usual. Please go to the WTM website or sign up to find out about our next offerings. This talk has been recorded and it will be posted on our website within hopefully the next week. On March the 17th, a reminder for you, it's Mindfulness for the Overthinking with Nicole Libben, who is a wonderful speaker, and that should be something that I hope you can join us with. And in the final comment, the WTM is an organization that freely offers all of these teachings, and we are very proud of what we do and our attempt to offer this to the community. Historically, we met at the Shaganappi Community Hall, and when we met in person, we had the opportunity for people to make some donations in person at that time. It probably makes it more difficult for people to do this now. But it's just to bear in mind that there is no offerings made to the teachers, no offerings made to the organizers, because we are now a Zoom group. This has incurred greater costs than we've ever experienced before. Our tech support in order to put everything out and send out this, to host it, to post it on our website, our meetup membership, our hosting membership. And so if it's possible, only if it's possible, and if you think that this has been of value, our previous talks, our upcoming talks, then please go to our home site. There's a donate button on the front page, and donate whatever you feel is reasonable. Even as small as $5 would help us to continue in these offerings. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you on March 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil and Clarine.